First Gnostic Church of Christ. We are reading and commenting on the Gnostic text, the first apocalypse of James. This particular book is a revelation of a conversation between Jesus, or the Christ, and James. Christ relates to James, there are Archons here on earth, reside among men and rule over man, total 72. And then under those, each of those have 12 angels or archangels that fall under their authority, and they too work among the various different nations, original rooted nations of humanity. And Christ then shares with James they will be seizing the Christ to bring him to his crucifixion, invariably, and also that James too will be sought after. Why? Christ relates the reasoning to be Christ and James were sharing the good news. The good news, we all are from, originally, the pleroma, or the Holy Souls realm, and we are full, and Christ, the Father, the Mother, Sophia, love us just the way we are, and they have placed within us a spiritual self. That is who we really are. We are not our physical bodies. Physical bodies are merely the mechanism, much like a car. Car is not who you are, but the car is merely a vehicle to get you from point A to point B. And then there's the soul. The soul is sort of that radar system. You can think of it as the GPS system in the vehicle. You put in where you want to go, and then you go there. But your goal as a driver is not only get to the destination, but ultimately to achieve or accomplish some outcome that you wish to accomplish. And that is why you get into the vehicle, you use the GPS system, and ultimately the ultimate purpose is for you to carry out some form of accomplishment, some kind of duty or desired outcome. That is the seed that Christ aptly talks about. And when we share this good news that God loves us just the way we are, that the only sin is to not know your original origins, and that you are perfect just the way God created you. It isn't you that is corrupt, but it's the realm in which you reside, known as the Canoma, that is corrupt, that feeds off of a cycle of death in order that there be life. And life then dies, and death feeds off of life, and life feeds off of death. It's a cycle of endless blood spilling of one sort or another. And in the secret book of John, Thomas was relayed by Christ to have said, he who has come to know this realm or this world will see that it is but a corpse, and this corpse is not worthy of the person that knows this or comes to know this truth. So you are above, not in a hierarchical sense, but in the sense of your gnosis and your ultimate purpose. You are beyond this realm. And to share that is to make fishers of men and women that Christ talked about. That is sharing the good news. And that is the one and only unforgivable sin, is not to fulfill that seed and to follow that path. And ultimately, there are two main things that the demiurge and his archons use to mislead humanity, and they are dogma, and they do this through religious organizations or governmental organizations or corporations. These are the various different ways they ensure, and they also use the sheepdog method through peers, through parents, through your pastor, your preacher, whatever it happens to be, to get you to line up to a preset pattern of how you're supposed to behave. And this is what you're supposed to do. Now, the second way is to get you to believe that you are only flesh, and the only thing that matters is to chase after the things of the flesh and to fulfill only the gratification of the flesh, and that's it. And once you die, you blow away in the dust, and that's all there is. There never was anything prior, and nor will there be anything thereafter. Whatever short amount of time, if you're fortunate enough to live 70, 80, 90, 100 years, then that's it for you. And that is the second way. And so therefore man gets desperate. He has a kind of urge to go out and take everything he can, sort of like that animal that hasn't eaten and needs to eat and just is so ravenous to take in as much as it can because it doesn't know if it's going to feed again for weeks or months. That's the state of sort of that frenzy that the Archons keep us in, a state of poverty. And it's not just physical poverty, but it's also psychological poverty, spiritual poverty, intellectual poverty. Now, the way in which they get us to line up to either dogma or through the cares and lust and mindset of this world is again through dogma, through these laws, through fear, through aggression, anger, through inferiority. And this is what Christ was sharing with James. And that James then would go out and tell everybody else. He'd go tell his disciple, all the other disciples, and he'd then share it with everybody else. But of course, the Archons and the Demiurge cannot have this kind of truth be spread around. And you can see the way human history continually is going through a cycle. Every time that things get built up and it looks like it's going to improve, then the powers that be make sure they shut it down. And they put everybody else into really fighting over maybe 5% of what's left while they take the 95 rest. And they continue to maintain their control and their greed and their power over humanity. But humanity allows this to be. Now, the second thing that Christ explained is the reason this is the case down to the metaphysical level has to do with the yin and yang, the male and the female. This universe right now, at least in this part of history, places its emphasis on only going out to get the male force, whether it be by control through dogma and laws, or it be just go out and get what you want, and that's it. And it doesn't really matter what are the consequences ultimately, whether it's to yourself or to the environment, to people around you. You're just going to go for what you want, just sort of blindly. That's the male, unbridled will force, the universal male energy. And without the female, that is the wisdom to kind of set back, consider, and meditate, and contemplate and think about what it's doing, cares beyond itself, beyond just getting. And even this idea of not going to hell is also about I want to get to heaven. Even if everybody else I know, when I say a careful goes to hell on a handbasket and burns forever and ever, well, at least I'm merrily in heaven. And this is the understanding of that sort of male, careless, lack of sympathy and empathy that is constantly compounded throughout megaphone of society. Now, of course, you do have certain movies that talk about male in a kind of compassionate way, but it's in the light of men being the saviors. They have to save the damsel in distress, because you also have the other part where the female may care, but she has no self-reliance, totally dependent on the male, and so she's not able to have her own balance either. But ultimately, this is what is being talked about, and Christ is sharing with James. And then he relates how, in order to get through the Archons and through the Demiurge, much in the way Paul went up through the various different levels of the heavens, so too James had to face the Archons and the people of the world that are going to persecute him. And once he tells the truth, they come after him. And you'll see this in various different ways in modern times. When people try to wake people up, then they make that a bad word, or they persecute small little groups of people, scapegoat them to get everybody to fear them and to persecute them. And this is kind of the way of the world. And every time somebody tries to rise up and try to help, whether it's Martin Luther King or it's JFK or if it's Gandhi or even the Christ, they all get ultimately sacrificed in some way through assassination or crucifixion. And so this is the stark reality. Christ is sharing with James. And so James is able to eventually find that through what Christ taught, the way to get through is to understand your worthiness to receive the good news, that you are a son and daughter of God, and you're going back, and you proclaim that with no reservations to the Archons and the Demiurge, and you fear not for your physical body, but you stand up because you understand you are your spiritual self, and everything else is just a tool to that end. But then there's the reincarnation of those that then maybe find their spiritual self, but they know the worthiness to receive, but then there's the soul part of them draws them back into this realm. And this is where we sort of leave off when Christ explains James is going to be facing 3 detainers that are going after his soul, and he explains how to address this. So let's pick up where we left off there. It's written here, but when you come to these 3 detainers who take away souls by theft in that place, and that place is, of course, wherever it happens to be in the heavens, in the afterlife. It could be in the 6th, 7th heaven. Paul went through several different layers. ... these, and again, it's fragmented, so we're going to do the best we can here. You ... a vessel ... much more than ... of the one whom you ... for ... her root. So the only thing I can get out of this is understand your body's just a vessel, and there's so much more to you than just that. There's much more than just your body. Of the one whom you ... for ... her root. So you are from the Sophia and from the Christ. You're at the root of that, so you're more than just the physical body. You too will be sober, ... But I shall call upon the imperishable knowledge, which is Sophia, who is in the Father, and who is the mother of Achamoth. And again, remember, Achamoth is the physical, relating to Jesus, the Jesus man. It's that level of the Achamoth. It's Sophia coming to this physical realm, manifesting. Could be the body of the universe, could be the earth. You could think of it as Gaia, you could think of it as Mother Nature, but it's the feminine, and it can show up in many different ways, be it Madonna, be it Esther, be it Diana, be it whatever it happens to be, Mary. Achamoth had no father nor male consort. And remember, Sophia wanted to be like as the Father. So she had this great desire. This is where desire was born, to be as the Father. In order for her to desire this, she would first have to believe that she's not equal to the Father, because she's feminine, and so she's not at the level of the male. That is what began the process of what's called the anomaly. Now, in Orthodox Christianity, they call it the fall, told in various different cultures throughout history, but in the Hebrew text, you could consider it being Eve taking of the apple, for example. But they call it a fall, but in Gnosticism, we call it an anomaly. The Achamoth had no father and nor male consort, because she didn't consort with her consort, which is the Christ. But she is female from a female. She produced you without a male. So, in other words, she produced humanity without a male. This meaning that she had no sense of a will, that she gave it away to men. She cared, yes, but she had no real will of her own, since she was alone and in ignorance as to what lives through her mother, because she thought that she alone existed. But I shall cry out to her mother. This is Christ saying, I'll cry out to her mother. This is Christ coming down. Now, again, this is the whole motif in this realm, where the Jesus man's coming to rescue the female. He's fulfilling all the mythologies in order that you believe. Not that he believes them, but he understands because we believe in those mythologies, he's fulfilling them. All the laws and all the prophets. He says, I come to fulfill all the laws and all the prophets. And for what reason? So that you may believe. But I shall cry out to her mother. And remember, that's Barbello. And then they will fall into confusion and will blame their root and the race of their mother. So who are they? It's referring to all the children. They will blame their root. So they will blame women, and they'll blame the race of their mother, which is the female. So men will say it's women is the weakest part of the chain. It's the weakest link. It's the reason why we've fallen. It's the reason why this world is the way it is. And they'll be subjugated. And they'll be afraid to let the female energy out. And they'll want to control it, because they will come to see that it is, from their vantage point, the cause of all the problem in the world. And plus, the woman is feeble and helpless, and she needs a hero to save her and to set her straight, because she's lost and she got misled by the serpent. But in Gnosticism, we understand the serpent actually was the Christ, showing up as the seraphim, supposedly a snake, or maybe a seraphim that looks similar to a snake. But in Gnosticism, we understand actually female is the first real teacher. But in Orthodoxy, they would say it's the opposite. Women is the source of all problem. And so this is what Christ is saying, that when I come to assist Sophia to realize her worthiness to receive back into the pleroma, then there will be confusion. And that confusion among men will lead them to blame women. It will cause them to become hysterical, basically, because they won't know how to deal with this truth that God loves them, and it will be too much for them. But you will go up to what is yours. ... and you will ... the pre-existent one. Yours is whatever the Father's is and the Mother's is, Sophia and Christ is. You two own that as well. We all share it, basically, and existed before anything that we're seeing in this realm. All right, in the next paragraph, it's written, they are a type of the 12 disciples and the 12 pairs. ... Achamoth. So there's the 12 disciples and the 12 pairs. The 12 pairs are referring to the ionic emanations, luminaries that exist in the pleroma, which is translated Sophia. So that's the 12th, or the last of the 12. So it's a pair in the reflecting in the Kanoma, or the 12 disciples, reflecting the 12 aeons that exist in the pleroma. Achamoth's translation in the pleroma is Sophia, and who I myself am. And Christ is, remember, consort to Sophia, and they're one body. So Sophia is Christ, and Christ is Sophia. And who the imperishable Sophia is is through whom you will be redeemed. And it's through her that you will get your redemption. In other words, you will get your ticket out of here. And who you are all the sons of him who is, these things they have known and have hidden within them. So this was carried through Seth, Adam and Eve, this Gnostic truth. And it was brought all the way through Mary, and she conceived the Christ, or the Jesus man. And Jesus was the first to beget or to understand his origins and the true nature. Mary conceived it, so she considered it. Whether or not she actually was aware that she understood it is one thing, but she did understand it. That's why she was able to conceive of the Jesus man, and then that resulted in the Christ. And this has been hidden from all the powers that be, the principalities from the beginning. You are to hide these things within you, and you are to keep silence. Now, here's the thing. He's telling him to write all this down. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't go out, and Christ's not telling James, don't go out and proclaim the good news. He's definitely saying that. But he's saying, write all this down, and make sure you don't tell anybody that you've written it down. So the Archons and all these orthodox dogmatic types don't come after them and burn it and get rid of it. So he wants them basically to keep that writing secret, what he shared with him. But you are to reveal them to Addai. He was with the disciples, basically. He was following. He was among one of the 70. He was a scribe, Addai of Edessa. So he is based on various Eastern Christian traditions. Addai was a Jew born in Edessa, came to Jerusalem for a festival where he heard the preaching of John the Baptist. After being baptized in the Jordan River, he remained in Judea and became a follower of Jesus. He was chosen as one of the 70 disciples, sent in pairs to preach in the cities and the places. I was telling you, he created a liturgy in Syria at the time, whatever he had written down, and maybe I'm suspecting it could be some of the things that James relayed back to him in the conversation James and Christ had together. That's where it all started with the movement in Mesopotamia, in Syria, and Persia, and that's where you got some of the Mandean and Gnostic thought that really started in that area. I'm speculating that this is what we have. Now, going back, this is what Christ is asking him, instructing him to give the writings over to him. When you depart, immediately war will be made with this land. And of course, we know the history that ended up happening. Weep then for him who dwells in Jerusalem. But let Addai take these things to heart. In the 10th year, let Addai sit and write them down. And when he writes them down, ... and they are to give them ... he has the ... he is called Levi. Then he is to bring ... word ... from what I said earlier. So you might remember that Levi was one of the 12 tribes of Israel at the time. And also Levi, etymology is the joiner or the connector or the bridgeway. So he's to write them down. Then he is to bring ... word ... from what I said earlier ... a woman ... Jerusalem in her ... and he begets 2 sons through her. He's supposed to bring it to a woman is my guess, and then they end up falling in love. Christ prophesies what's going to happen. She'll end up having 2 sons. And then they are to inherit these things and the understanding of him who ... exalts. I'm not sure again what this all means. It could mean they'll have the understanding, maybe Sophia or the Christ, and they are to receive ... through him from his intellect. Now the younger of them is greater, and meaning again not greater as in a hierarchical sense, but just more skilled, this knowledge and sharing it. And may these things remain hidden in him until he comes to the age of 17 years. ... beginning ... through them. They will pursue him exceedingly, since they are from his ... companions. So in other words, since he's a lineage, the Archons are going to sniff out that, okay, they have some kind of knowledge that they're teaching and they're spreading around, and they're going to pursue them, basically, in their seed. He will proclaim through them, and they will proclaim this word. Then he will become a seed of ... So again, I have no idea what's being said here because it's very fragmentary. James said, I am satisfied, and they are ... my soul. Yet another thing I ask of you, who are the 7 women who have been your disciples? And I'm glad James is asking this because 4 Gospels pretty much just mentions the 12 male disciples. Very little has been written about the female. A little bit about Mary Magdalene and the mother Mary of Christ and these things, but that's pretty much it, just sparse. And behold, all women bless you. I also am amazed how powerless vessels have become strong by a perception which is in them. So James is beginning to realize, like, okay, they've really been carrying around this so essential truth, and they've been subjugated for so long, and it took great strength to hold on to this. It was the women that carried on this Gnostic truth, is what James is hinting at. And the Lord said, you, well, a spirit of, a spirit of thought, a spirit of counsel of a a spirit, a spirit of knowledge, of their fear, when we had passed through the breath of this Archon, whose name Atheneos, him, and he was ignorant, When I came forth from him, he remembered that I am a son of his. He was gracious to me at that time as his son. Now, the son of an Archon, what is exactly Christ saying here? Which is very interesting, but again, it's so fragmentary. I think it would do it injustice to try to speculate or guess here. The only thing I could say is ultimately Jesus is a man like everybody else. We're all part of the Archons, but ultimately Jesus the Christ goes up to the seventh heaven and the eighth heaven, and he meets with the Archons. He is Jesus Christ, which is he becomes the son of Yaldabaoth, and they two become the new face of the demiurge. Then Sabaoth educates or teaches Yaldabaoth, and this is why after the death of Christ he has become not as heavy-handed as the Old Testament version of the demiurge. It may be something related to this. And then before I appeared here, he cast them among this people. I guess he's saying he cast 7 women, and from the place of heaven, the prophets, We just don't have enough here to even begin to guess. James said, Rabbi, I, altogether, in them especially, And then the Lord said, James, I praise you, walk upon the earth, the words while he, on the, For cast away from you the cup which is bitterness, for some from, set themselves against you, for you have begun to understand their roots from beginning to end. So the only thing I guess here is Christ is saying, don't be bitter against these people because they're ignorant. Remember when Jesus, the man, died on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do. And so Christ has sort of given him that same sort of understanding, don't hold bitterness because you understand more than they do. See, they're walking in ignorance. They don't understand the beginning to the end of the story. Cast away from yourself all lawlessness, and beware lest they envy you. And in Orthodoxy, lawlessness would relate to breaking the 10 Commandments, whatever other commandments that may came along in the New Testament, which there were no real commandments other than to love, to judge not, really. But in Gnosticism, lawlessness is referring to just living a undisciplined life, not using your wisdom and your Gnosis to assist you, being mindful, to assist yourself in making wise choices. This is what Christ is asking them to do. So it has nothing to do with Mosaic laws. And beware lest they envy you. And they will envy you when they see that you are wise and you make wise choices and your life is at peace for it. When you speak these words of this perception, encourage these 4, Salome and Miriam and Martha and Arsenoi, since he takes some, to me, he is, burnt offerings and, So Christ is specifically pointing out 4 of these 7 women he wants to make sure that James really shares these understandings with, because they had a very close relationship to Christ as picking up. But I, not in this way, but, first fruits of the, upward, so that the power of God might appear. So I'm guessing here he's hinting at, I'm going to have to be crucified and I'm going to be taken up so that the power of God might appear, the Comforter, right? And the Comforter is the Christ or the Holy Spirit. The perishable has gone up to the imperishable, and the female element has attained to this male element, meaning the outward is going up to the inward. It's going to transcend to the inward. So the male's going to go inward, and then the female's going to go outward. So this brings out the best of everybody, you see. If the female's not able to find her male self, then she has imbalance. If the male's not able to find his female self, then he has imbalance. And right now the world is primarily patriarchal, and so the female element is missing, and that is what's causing things to basically be imbalanced. So the next verses, James said, Rabbi, into these three things then has their ... been cast. For they have been reviled, and they have been persecuted ... Behold ... everything ... from anyone ... For you have received ... of knowledge. So what are those three things? Not clear. And ... that what is the ... go ... you will find ... But I shall go forth and shall reveal that they believed in you, that they may be content with their blessing and salvation, and this revelation may come to pass. It's going to reassure the disciples and the 7 women, everything's going to be fine. They're going to find redemption. They're going to be saved from this realm. They're going to be able to find their way out. And then he went at that time immediately and rebuked the 12, and cast out of them contentment concerning the way of knowledge ... I guess James goes back and he rebukes the 12. What I'm guessing is the 12 are still hanging on to the law. And again, I'm just speculating. And James rebukes them. It says, no, cast out of them contentment concerning the way of knowledge, and introducing to them a new understanding. And remember that Christ talked about in the original book of James, James would be the founder of the spiritual way, that to follow after James, because he would be the beginning of the spiritual understanding. Peter would be the beginning of the law orientation, and that's the Catholic Church. And James would be the beginning of the Gnostic understanding. But anyway, that's kind of what I'm guessing. At ... and the majority of them ... when they saw, the messenger took in ... the others ... said ... him from this earth, for he is not worthy of life. All right, so this is when I'm seeing that all these people are gathering around him and getting ready to take his life, and saying he's not worthy to live. These then were afraid. They arose, saying, we have no part in this blood, for a just man will perish through injustice. James departed so that ... look ... for we ... him. So James didn't, I guess he just didn't want to have anything to do with how they're getting ready to treat Christ or Jesus and put him on the cross. And that was the end of it. First apocalypse of James. Now there's a second one that's going to be the next book that we're going to get into. All right. Really, the whole book is a revelation about that the Archons are here to keep us here, basically. And they actually are not up in the skies, but they're literally here on earth. They walk and rule men, 72 of them. And each of them have authority over 12 of their own archangels. And they use their power to rule over humanity, and they do it through laws, dogma and lust. Then they use the 7 deadly sins, and sins being having misunderstanding, not having gnosis or wisdom about how to live a righteous life. Righteous not in a moralistic sense, but in the sense of a good life, a healthy life, balanced life, integrating the male and the female. That's through those fear, lust, anger, division, all those things that we talked about in the other videos. And that your goal here is to fulfill the seed, the gift that Christ gave you. But some of us will be called to be fisher of men, meaning that we'll go out and we'll teach the good news. When you do that, eventually the Archons and the powers that be would try to gang up on you and try to persecute you. And so Christ talks about how to work through that and eventually have the confidence that you'll find your way out of here, because you're doing the good work. And you're doing the good work not only in accomplishing the seed that's going to bring more light to this universe, but you're leading people toward the Sabbat, meaning the way out of here and back to the returning. All right, so that wraps it up for this one. We'll pick up on the next Apocalypse of James, part 2, in the next video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, have a blessed day.